Halo, it's Jang here with the Mega Construx Halo Covenant Goblin Battlesuit set. The Goblin itself is a smaller build than I was expecting, and that's a very good thing. It's actually a lot more difficult, as counterintuitive as it is, to design something in a small scale using a block-based building system and to get it to be kind of realistic looking because of the issue of resolution. It's actually easier to create something that's larger with more pieces where you can start to approximate more interesting shapes more easily with existing parts. Fortunately, Mega is not afraid to invest into making new pieces where it's absolutely necessary to really convey the shape that is needed for a licensed item, and here they have done a good job with a new canopy piece. It really fits into the interesting shape that they've created there with building at multiple angles to kind of fill up the space, or at least to create the space, and then the new part just perfectly fits in there, and the whole thing is able to swivel open to give you access to the control compartment that will fit the full-sized modern articulated Grunt in there. They've got a printed console piece for the dude there, and they've also got a printed piece back here that is appropriate. A little bit of detailing on the underside, so even if you're looking at this from a Spartan's point of view, you still get to see a pretty good look at it. They've not left any angle looking particularly bad. Printed eyepiece, one on either side. I think a good use of, or a good choice of colors overall, and it has pretty respectable articulation with the inclusion of ball joints for the shoulders and also the thighs, and then for the lower extremities as well, for the lower arms and the lower legs. So those can be fully posed up, and these have plenty of friction in them, so they will hold their pose. You can even get the whole thing to pretty easily just stand on one single leg. You just need to find the balance point for it. Not a problem at all. These ball joints work much better. That's literally the one thing that I found to be a little bit easy to pull apart. Could have used just one more piece on the underside there. But unlike the ball joint pieces in the Cyclops builds, the most recent Cyclops builds, these don't come apart easily. These are actually fairly durable. They're a little bit more obvious in terms of the shape of the ball and socket pieces, but they work a lot better. I haven't looked at the older Mega lines and the Mega Blocks lines to see if they've done these before in some of their original series. I don't know if this is a new piece or not, but certainly works well. Then over here on the side with the Mega Needler, they've used the translucent pieces for the needles up on top, and they integrated a working shooter into it. Mine, unfortunately, doesn't quite work right. I'm not able to get that trigger, which is on the underside, to squeeze in fully. It just stops right there. It needs to go just a little bit farther. So that's just a little bit off. I could easily modify that by just taking one layer of plates out here, but as designed, I have not found this to work properly. They only include one shot in there, unfortunately. No reloads for that, so it limits the play value just a little bit in that sense, and certainly the design having just a little bit of issue there is not a good thing. But like I said, you can definitely modify beyond that. Again, looking around the back, a side that is not typically designed to be camera friendly, it looks fine. It's a little bit plain, but it's not bad. It doesn't look particularly worse than the front in terms of its level of detail overall. The hand over here has the little bit of articulation with the fingers that can be moved up and down. Got kind of a thumb over here as well if you want to. You can kind of put this into a thumbs up pose, something like that. And they got a piece under there, round turbine exit piece, just to give it a little extra detail. Again, just the overall level of detail I think is pretty good around this thing, and it's pretty posable. I think that's going to be important for a lot of folks who want to kind of portray the comedy of this thing and its very existence. Of course, it is a bit formidable actually in game, depending upon at what level you encounter it. But ultimately, it's a giant scaled Grunt mech that's designed after a Grunt and that has a Grunt piloting it. So it is the comedy, and so I think it's important to embrace that a bit, even in a collectible. The set comes with this sweet setup for a freeze frame of a rocket being fired off the shoulder of the operator Spartan there. It just has the extra long clear rod that's holding on to an RPG warhead, and then they've recolored the flamethrower piece here to just a smoke color to show you the exhaust coming out the other end. So that actually looks pretty darn good. Maybe they could have gone for a little bit of frosting for the finish, for the little bit of smoke trail on the back, or the plume on the back, but I like this. It's a pretty cool setup. The Spartan himself, again, is an operator, and he's in an unusual color. It's a color that Mega has had in their palette for quite a long time. This green is the same color that they used on many of their earliest Mega sets, and I'm sure before then as well. But notice there's no marbling in it and no speckling, at least none intentional. It's just a plain green, which is unusual, something that you just don't see that frequently in what used to be considered the Collector Series lines. And I welcome it. It's different to me. I like how kind of clean it looks, yet having that very earthy, kind of muddly, slimy almost color, you know. It's just different, and I think that's a good thing. It does have a little bit more prominence to the flashing. There's more contrast in the areas where sprues were cut or broken off, and also some spots where flashing existed. And also the finish looks a lot more glossy than I'm used to. That may just be this particular one, how it came through, but I wonder if they're switching to a higher pressure, a higher pressure in their molds now to kind of change their quality just a little bit. I'll have to see how that works out over time. And then the Grunt here is just a modern era miner with the high metallic flake content in that slightly cyanish blue color. It's not a true blue, I believe. It's just a little bit green of blue. They've used it a number of times before in different armor pieces, but I think that it looks fine here. A little bit disappointing that they didn't give us a named character. You know, just would have been nice to pick something. Of course, it would have been great to have this be Yabda the Destroyer or something like that. But I think a named Grunt would have been appropriate for a set with a big mech. But it's one of the modern articulated, super articulated ones. They work great, and I think they're designed pretty well. Not the biggest fan of this color scheme. I don't think it's one of the best, but it's not bad. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the set. Just most importantly, the Goblin itself looks good on display. You know, this is definitely a collector and kind of more display oriented type of set, as opposed to being more for heavy play. But I think it works out pretty well, and the posability is good for play. It's definitely a lot more tolerant of people being hands-on with it than some of the sets that we've gotten recently, so that's an improvement. I think these ball joints work out really well. Love what they've done with the whole rocket set there. This whole needler arm looks great. Cockpit works great. So a lot of things were done really well with this. Looking forward to picking up the Banished Banshee as well. Hope I showed you everything you wanted to see here. I'm going to move on to my next video, so I'll be talking to you again very soon. Thanks for watching.